I had a dream the other day I would share, and I was being chased by a crocodile this time. I was in a swampy area, and no matter where I ran or wherever I went, I just couldn't escape it. And however, at one point, I managed to get away from it, sort of thing. And then I was strolling down a sort of a pathway, and ahead of me, I saw a group of people, and they were scrabbling up a tree. And I thought, oh no, I wonder what they're escaping from. And so obviously they were scared of something, and so I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to look behind me to see what's going on. So I turned around to look behind me, and it wasn't the crocodile this time. It was one of them Tyrannosaurus Rex things charging towards me, and so I started running again. And at the very last moment, I dived out of the way and sort of narrowly sort of missed its gnashing jaws, and that was the end of that dream.
Kind of like that scene in Jurassic Park where in the dream, where they're in the scene, and Jeff Goldblum's looking back, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex is chasing him, and he says to the driver, "Is this part of the tour?" And so again, yeah, what you're seeing is a demonstration of what's going on the Earth. The swampy area, the Earth is a swamp with crocodiles, which are reptilians. The Tyrannosaurus Rex, same thing. They're all dinosaurs. And the people jumping up the tree, they're trying to get away from it. But, you know, when you climb up a tree, you can only go so far, and they can still get you. So this is what people are doing. This is what's being demonstrated. In other words, they're thinking that, oh, well, I'll just go over here, or I'll leave England or the United States, and I'll go over here where there's no reptilians. Well, you're still on the Earth. And so again, I would say it's a demonstration of the Earth and what's taking place here with the reptilian. And they have many body types and disguises. And yeah, they're wanting to get you. That's what's being demonstrated. They're after you, but the boys are there, and all of a sudden the experience ends. They're just letting you know that yeah, it's very real. They're here.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I had a question. In an earlier Skype, you were talking about the is wanting to survive, and I was just thinking about that, and I thought, by that, then, was there a possibility that it could not survive? And if that were the case, would then absolutely everything that flows from it, all the creation, everybody and everything, would fade away too? And that would be the end of absolutely everything.
This is, those ideas have crossed my mind too in the past, etc. And yeah, you're wondering about that. It's like kids, they wonder about life, or they ask their parents, so, what about God, or what about this, Dad, or, etc. So, we're just kids here is what we are. And it's okay. But no, once you really recognize what the is, you'll see that, no, that's just a personal self with an idea in creation, thinking of the beginning and there must be an ending. It's like, well, whatever. No, the idea of survival with the isness it's really more of a term to simply kind of define its position, but it's an isness. It has nothing to do with that. So it's like the sun shining. Again, the sun is a very good demonstration. The sun's there's no interest there. It just is what it is. It just shines. And that's what the isness is. It just is what it is. But to relate to us, okay, in some way, gradually, just like parents relating to their children as they grow up, they just don't give them the big education. You just don't take the 5-year-old and put him into university because you want him to be smart. No, he's got to, grow into that. He's got to graduate into that. And so the isness life sees this too. It sees itself. And so, no, this is what's so awesome and amazing about it that you can't even consider, and that is that, yes, there's none of that. There's none of what is in creation that is with the isness. And this is where it is something that cannot be considered. So how do you do it? You see, that's the part you got to figure out, because it is an isness, and anything you think or consider, that's not it. None of it. It's not it. So what is it? You see? But that's just the personal self. That's all. And so what do we have here? Look at all the smart people in the world. You know, the Einsteins and the whatevers and that guy in the wheelchair and all these people, etc. And these are all the so-called smart people look to. And what do they really know? They don't know anything. They just keep rattling around their minds. So again, eventually you figure out creation and you learn to free yourself. But at the same time, you can relate to creation. And the idea is that when you really recognize the yes, when you really do, you will want to support what it is. And by that very fact, you demonstrate that in creation for those that are struggling to recognize it. See? That becomes the real adventure and challenge to do that, just what we're doing. That's why I created the new presentation and everything else. So those are ideas in creation. And when you can learn to be indifferent to your personal self and mind altogether, then you're going to start getting some real glimpses of what the is, because it has nothing to do with anything in creation. But yet it does relate, like if you were holding a mirror up and you were looking at yourself and in back of you was the sun will reflect in that mirror. But it's not the reality it is. It's just a reflection. So it does relate to creation, but it is not that. It is something else more real. See? So you got to be indifferent, turn around and see it for what it is and let the mirror go. And then at the same time, this is why the guys are here, because they're having this adventure too. And that is that because they care so much, 100%, that they're willing to stay in creation to help others out and wake them up too, you see. So, yeah. Again, that's your personal mind thinking that. But you see the know-it-alls, they're paid a lot of money to think ideas like that and to write reports and whatever. And so that's a good job, isn't it? That's a fun job. Anybody can create that for themselves, but most of us, we're not paid to recognize this or whatever. But yeah, it's all in the mind. So it's all invented stuff.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you spoke about also several Skypes ago now. You said there was a 51% attitude tolerance being now in effect decided by the ISSS, and it's like up until now the sort of the mechanism for dealing with poor life choices was sort of cause and effect karma, and I was wondering that the fact that the ISSS has decided a sort of almost like a tougher method, sending people to the phantom zone if they fail to reach this 51%, this sort of suggests that in this particular epoch, that it has been far worse than any previous epoch, and so this sort of tougher method is required. And I thought this 51% seemed a little harsh, really, because I was sort of imagining a scale from 0 to 100%. And so 51% would be sort of half of that from, I mean, that would incorporate sort of awful all the way to sort of moderate.
It becomes a little confusing, doesn't it? You know, it's kind of like the speed laws. I'm sure you have them over there, and we have them here too. So, even the police go faster than the posted speed. So this is a basic idea. I really didn't decide that part of it. Okay, I made certain requests when we first were dealing with the Queen of Orion, etc., and the boys followed through. They did it. Okay, so the 51% idea was decided by Rebazar. Okay, it was not decided by the ISSS. Again, the real guys are risk takers too. They take on certain things that they do. Just like a builder decides to build a house, he takes on the responsibility of it. The real guys do that too. They're not exempt. They decide what they're going to take on. They decide what they're going to do, and they're part of that too. So the 51%, the basic idea is that, and it's not set in stone, that Rebazar decided, was that, people better get their act together, because enough is enough. In other words, the planet is being destroyed and being agreed to so rapidly that you better pay attention, because again, we're deciding to do something wonderful here, and we do not want to be interfered with anymore. That's the idea. In other words, you see, we're sitting here watching the world controllers, the reptilians, destroy everything, okay? And they've had their fun. Well, we have rights too. I have rights. I don't want to be interfered with anymore. So people basically it's an interference idea. It's not that just people, because they're not happy one day, they're going to the phantom zone. No, that's not the idea, okay? So just like the speed limit, people are over speeding the speed limit all the time, and they're not getting ticketed. That's not the idea. So it's a more real relationship. It's mainly interference with what I'm doing and what I'm deciding for everyone as a benefit. In other words, to present something without the interference. And those people that interfere, they're going bye-bye, because again, they've had enough time, they've had enough warning, and they're going bye-bye. So the personal self won't realize that probably through the whole life because it's on automatic, but the real part of it at some point will, and it can be 100 lifetimes from now. Who knows when? I don't know. Again, the boys take care of that. You might say, that's not my department. I'm doing what I'm doing, and they're doing what they're doing. So I put in the request, and they decide that. But Rebazar came up with that. But it's not what you think it is. All of a sudden, because of it's not properly understood by some people when you start talking about this, you can turn it into, it's going to sound to them like it's a curse all of a sudden. And it's not that. It's actually a warning. And, like anything, it's like, driving down the road and there's a sign there that says, road ends 100 feet ahead. Well, if you don't want to take on the warning, you want to keep driving 60 miles an hour, will you fly off the cliff? It's like, we put the sign up to warn you. We don't have time to build, a bunker there or a big wall. So we at least put the sign up to warn you that, if you keep driving and you're going to go over the cliff. So it's kind of something like that. And so it's a wake up. It's all part of the wake up. Anything the boys do overall is a benefit, but to the personal self and its personal routines, because it wants things its way. In other words, when the boys say, oh, you're eating too much sugar, you're going to get diabetes. Well, the personal self is saying, well, I like sugar and you can't tell me what to do. See, so, and then the individual ends up with diabetes because they didn't listen. So, we've all gone through that. We're all stubborn. And so that's really the idea, young man. It's not the, it's not like the things that the presidential executive orders that, Obama and Trump are doing to where everybody is nailed to the cross. No, it's not that idea at all. But that's kind of the idea.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up a bit. Okay, yeah. Yeah, in your new books, I can't remember which one it was. You said, you wrote in it that we create our own time, and that the ideas and thoughts that we project sort of cause time streams that we have to then experience, which is like cause and effect in creation. And so stopping constantly putting out emotions and thoughts would allow us then, as you say, to be in the nowness, and so in that state of being, and no longer stuck in time streams of our own making, can we effectively then time travel in creation? And because I've had a few dreams in which there were certain dicey situations, and I avoided them by doing just that. I sort of in the dream I sort of actually travelled through time, and I even made a funny whirring noise, like the sound if you've heard the TARDIS in Doctor Who. I made that sort of sound in the dream as well.
Well, yes, of course, you're experiencing it. So, and again, what is time? The business world, okay. Let's look at the cowboy and Indian days, and let's look at, way back when, before there were clocks or anything like that. That became the mechanical essence. People created that. The business world creates its own time. It really does. Everybody within the business world does that. And the business world, just like the stock exchange and whatever, it's all manipulated, and time is manipulated. You'll notice that the idea, the consciousness of time has been speeded up because of what is taking place. In other words, it's like people can't go fast enough. They can't make enough money. They want to work harder and push and push and push. See, the business world is an example of, adjusting time, creating time, you might say. Cowboys in Indian days, they didn't care about time. They went by the moons. The Indians went by, well, it's the new moon, or it's the old moon, or many moons, or whatever, or the stars, or what have you. They went by the environment that they were in, natural or not. They went by the environment they were in. We go basically by the invented environment, the mechanical environment. So this is where time can be whatever. It's like we have daylight savings time. Who decides to adjust time to where it's supposedly an hour earlier or an hour later? And you and I are talking, and we are in different supposed time zones, aren't we? But realistically, we're here now. That's real. The time zone and the time aspect and the time travel, that's all an idea. And when people time travel, or they say, well, I went to the future, or I went to the past, or whatever, they're many times seeing other worlds or other creations. They're just seeing other creations. And many people, people can go into the future and say, well, the future is good, or the future is bad, or whatever. They're going to see it all accordingly, or whatever is produced. And basically now you have virtual reality. You kind of wonder, are they controlling these aspects of ourselves and our minds, because we have Wi-Fi and microwaves everywhere, so a person can think that they're time traveling, because really there's no such thing. Everything is here and now, and it's like the phenomena revolves around you. And so there's your real awareness, and you have the phenomena. So whether you're in 1900 or 2000 or 2100, okay, you're still now. And the only thing that supposedly has changed is the surroundings. That's all. And it appears to be that, oh, I'm somewhere else. When realistically, when you have the awareness to see, when you just, you might say remove yourself from the bubble, you see that it doesn't matter. It's all the same bubble. Creation is just a big bubble. And so where is time, really? There's no such thing. But we identify with that because of the business world. The Indians didn't have a set time to get up. Their thing was probably dawn, or when the sun rose, they got up, like farmers. But today we have clocks. It's like, oh, gee, I got to be to work by 9 o'clock. You see, we're in a mechanical world. All this seems to be a convenience, but it's more things that you need to maintain. And then you become routined by these things, you see. Now, the boys, the real guys, they're not going to talk you out of this because you keep agreeing to it. They're going to try and demonstrate certain things to you for you to see more. But the time aspect is very interesting, and that is that the Nowness life is, everything is in the Nowness. It is really not in time and space, because that's phenomena, that's the simulator. People only think so because they have these physical bodies and they can feel them and they can see them. You have rubber duckies, and you have your car, and you have teddy bears, and you have a bicycle. You have these things too. It's just like your body. It's just a thing. But again, the ideas that you've decided this body is, that's what it becomes. So, and then when you have experiences, you can relate to them because you've read books and you've heard things, etc. But the best part is that when you learn really to be now all the time and recognize your real awareness, everything is there. You don't need time. You don't need these ideas and whatever. You don't need the mind at all. You don't need any of the 5 bodies. That's what's so cool about it. And you are aware of everything. So that is the journey. But in the meantime, you go through these processes, you use these relationships. So what I do is that I use my real awareness in creation to provide something that's a benefit for people to, learn about something more than just the phenomena they're in. But I use the phenomena to create that reference. That's the difference with just and then just creating something for a business to chase money, which is fine. Sure, you got to support yourself, but also something that's a benefit. And this is how you earn your way also, because see, then life can step in. Everything equals itself. You're becoming more aware, and the only way you become more aware is when the is agrees that you're to become more aware. You see, not because you decided it, but when it sees that you have that potential to become more aware, and then it becomes so. It's very interesting how it is. So there's a lot. Life is big. It's really big.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as sort of constant stimulation of the emotional and mental bodies maintain them, is it not conceivable that if an advanced species or an alien species perhaps learned of the real universes and the process of becoming more aware, might they possibly seek to suppress or eliminate emotion and the ability to think by sort of technological means, maybe by genetic tampering or such?
You mean that's what they're doing now? Yes, they're already doing that and a lot more. And yes, they have a catch-22 situation. In other words, a paradox. The reptilians do. They see what I'm doing. They see what the boys are doing. They see this going on, but they don't quite understand it because they've been so routine for thousands and thousands and even into millions of years of how they are. And they're a conquering race is what they are. This is their basic agenda. This was the war between the Orions and the Syrians. They're a conquering race. And so things have changed on Orion simply because the queen is gone and all this domination, etc. So, but yet these people are still grooved in a certain way. And so, yes, they have the potential to decide, and they do want. See, what they're really doing is they want their own freedom. They want to be free, but they're thinking in terms that they must, you might say, eliminate everything else that's in opposition to be free, and that's not the way to do it. But they've been rehearsed in this so much that it's hard for them to really understand anything else. So what is being presented here in a way looks like an opposition to them. So, they can see that they can't really get rid of it, but what they can do is that they can promote, deception to others to not agree to it. So it's very interesting. And yes, they have the right to decide. But then again, it's just like anybody. It's just like, a person in the church that all of a sudden comes across the new you. Well, they've got relationships, they got family. Hey, everybody's a church member, just like the corporation with Joni, etc. And all of a sudden, well, they start singing the new you, they're going to be the outcast. That's for sure. That's going to be a given. And with the reptilians, you start agreeing with something like this, you're going to be destroyed. That's a given. You see? So it's just like once you've worked for the government or you've worked for the mafia or whatever, you can't just quit. If you decide to do that, well, they just get rid of you because they eat their own. So the situation that we're in realistically right now with everything that's going on is very, very interesting. And this is where at a certain point I realized that you got to be a real risk taker. But here's the best part. And they're listening too. And when you take the risk, the boys will back you. But you got to take the risk, okay? But they will back you. That's your protection. But if you don't take the risk, well, you ain't decided, so there's nothing they could do. So you want to stay with them, It's like, people will beg. It's like, oh, protect me, Rebazar, whatever. Well, the idea is you keep agreeing with the dark side, we'll say. So how can they protect you? They can't protect you from what you're agreeing to. You need to step up and take the risk. And then they can step in, you see? Takes that agreement. Everything equals itself. So we're in a very interesting situation because, see, now through all those lifetimes you've been through, now you are aware of what's going on, where before you weren't. You were just going along with what was taking place in those particular lifetimes Now you've woken up to a point where now you're starting to see what's going on, and you are the decider. You decide to take the risk or not. And it's a constant, every new nowness, every new moment, stepping into the unknown to see what else there is, taking the risk to do it.
Okay, yes, thank you for that. Yeah, the next question was sort of along similar lines, I suppose, along the lines of everybody, basically, the majority of people basically are driven by sexual gratification and thrill seeking. And again, I was sort of thinking maybe a species might again seek to genetically alter itself to perhaps say have no genitalia, so the main drive that keeps the species stuck in the physical and astral would be removed.
Not necessarily, because what'll happen is that those things that occupied, yourself. It's like a person that smokes. It's not really the smoking so much because they've done it so long. They probably don't even like it, but it's just the habit and something to do with their fingers. You see, that's why they got these little finger toys. People they even advertise them on Facebook. These little twirly things, three-sided things like little spaceships. So you sit there and twiddle with your fingers because again, you start taking these things away. It sounds like a good idea, but at the same time, what replaces it? So if you don't have the awareness to replace it, what replaces it? Something else. It's like when people stop smoking, they want to stop smoking. Some of them, then they start eating. They start eating more. That's what they do, or other things. Not everybody, but just that idea. So again, it's not about that. What I suggest is that from all that, yeah, do what you want to do in the personal life, but go for the real awareness, and then you will see what's going on, and you will know what to do. You'll have a better view, and then if you decide to do it, do it. But other than that, go for the real awareness. Take that time, because it's going to take you the rest of your life to really figure this out and to eventually recognize the is, even in the smallest way. It's going to take your whole life and a lot more. So I would suggest getting started now, and all those other ideas, just kind of let them go and just kind of go with whatever, but just focus on that. And eventually those things will fade away on their own, you see, because your real awareness will take over. It'll take over the little self, and the little self will just kind of let go. So learn to see it that way, you see, instead of all those expensive operations.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, I've reached the end of all my questions for this week anyway. So unless anybody else has anything they wish to share or add, then that would wrap it up for the week.
Well, you kids are terrific. Thank you so much. That's almost 2 hours, so there's a lot of information there. So as you go out and share this, the best part is how it agitates people and all the feedback. So, you kids are starting out here. And yes, thank you for doing this. I'm more than happy to take part of it because I like the adventure too, and to see what happens. And, the world is as it is, and there's a lot of experience to have. And this is all part of the wake up. This helps you become more aware. It's all for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Duane, for your insights and answering all the questions and such.
Kevin and Pierce, was wonderful. Thank you so much for showing up and sharing. You guys are great. Have fun. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.